Today, we are discussing the use of harmful gases used in air conditioning systems, and I'm glad to welcome Dr. Xavier Moya from the Department of Material Science and Metallurgy at University of Cambridge. Hello, Javier. How are you?
Hello, good morning. I'm well, thanks.
I would like to start, Dr. Moya, with the story that came out yesterday. It has been reported that an alleged toxic coolant leak might have caused the deaths of two men and a woman who were found unresponsive at a five-star hotel in the Bahamas. Of course, it's not the first time that the impact of harmful chemicals used in air conditions are mentioned in the news, as there are a few studies researchers have shown that these gases can have a huge impact on human health and climate change. Can you tell us a little bit more about the role of these gases?
So the history of refrigeration is quite an interesting one. Like millennia, like thousands of years ago, we used to use ice and like natural resources for cooling. But then like around 200 years ago, cooling became more relevant. So other technologies started to be developed. And the most successful one is vapor compression, which is the one that we use in air conditioning systems and fridges in our houses and businesses. The technology consists in compressing a highly volatile gas and liquefy it and then expand it. And by doing this cycle, you can get cooling. But the issue is that the gases that we use are highly volatile and they are harmful to the environment and to us. So if you remember, in the 70s, the gases that we used to use were chlorofluorocarbons and hydrofluorocarbons. They were used for a number of decades, but then it became apparent that they were actually highly ozone-depleting gases. So they were changed by better gases. And then instead of contributing to ozone depletion, the gases became very important contributors to global warming. So the gases that we are using nowadays are hydrofluorocarbons, which are better for the ozone layer, but actually contribute very heavily to global warming. And this is where we are at the moment. We are trying to look for better alternatives. But the issue that we have at the moment is that there is no perfect free refrigerant. So if you don't want to have gases with high global warming potential, then the trade-off is that they are either toxic or flammable or both. And I think this is what is sadly the cause of the accident that you were mentioning in the US. So at the moment, the industry is and many people are doing lots of work trying to find a better gas refrigerant, but the solutions are not straightforward, because either you use what are so-called natural refrigerants like ammonia or propane, but they are toxic or flammable or both. So that's not something that you can use so simply in a house from the safety point of view, or other type of hydrocarbons.
So as I can understand from what you're saying, is it that the newest systems, air conditioning systems, are not using chlorofluorocarbons known as freon?
So the freons, the word that was used to be used many years ago, they are a modification. I mean, the ones that we have now are a modification. The ones that most systems use nowadays are these hydrofluorocarbons, HFCs. And these are the ones that we use most of the time. And they are also, as you know, there are many regulations in Europe and in the US and the rest of the world that are calling for these gases to be phased out because of global warming. So the alternatives are hydrocarbons, natural refrigerants, maybe other new technologies that may arise.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the properties of the chlorofluorocarbons known as freon? What impact do these gases have on human health if there is a massive leak on this system and, of course, on the environment, contributing to the global warming?
So I will say in general, I mean, not only freons, but I will just say in general, these gas refrigerants that we use, these fluid refrigerants that we use, they're highly volatile because, as I said, the way they work in a system is that you need to be able to change the state of the fluid from a gas phase to a liquid phase. So normally all these gases are highly volatile, which means that when they leak, they leak. If there is any leak, all the gas will go away because they are highly volatile. In general, if you're in a room and you have any gas leaking that is not basically safe, let's say it's not air, it could actually cause an accident because you can suffocate. So it can happen if you have a lot of nitrogen. Let's say nitrogen is by itself is not a harmful gas, but if you have a lot of nitrogen in a room, you can suffocate as well. So it's always a big challenge in terms of safety when you are dealing with gases. These ones in particular, because they are so volatile, they tend to be also flammable. Sometimes they are quite easy to ignite, so you need to be very careful from the safety point of view when you are designing the cooling systems. And many of them, like ammonia, are toxic. So ammonia is one of the oldest refrigerants known. It was discovered many years ago. It wasn't really used in let's say, domestic refrigeration because it's toxic. But now, because of environmental reasons, ammonia is having a bit of a comeback. So it's being, again, explored for refrigeration, but then you need to be very careful with the safety measures that you put in place.
So do you believe that if people are exposed inside a room, inside a house, into these toxic gases, including freon or other gases that are used in air conditioned systems nowadays, they have a risk for human health? I mean, they could lead to even a suffocation, as you said.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something that we need to be. I mean, we need to be always very careful when designing and operating and servicing all air conditioning systems. Really.
We know that you're working on an eco-friendly solid that could potentially replace inefficient use of these polluting gases used in most refrigerators and air conditions. Can you tell us a little bit more about this? I think that it is something like plastic crystals. Is that correct?
Yes, so we do work on a number of materials, but plastic crystals being one of them. And the motivation behind is trying to replace the gas refrigerants that we are using nowadays for the reasons that we've been discussing, because they contribute to global warming. They are also toxic and flammable. So we are trying to find a solid material that can do the same job. And these are solid materials that basically change temperature when you apply an external force to them. So when you compress them, they get hot, and when you expand them, they get cold. And the idea is trying to basically find new solid materials that can outperform or compete with HFCs and hydrocarbons, and then also build systems and cooling systems around them.
In terms of emissions of greenhouse gas emissions that of course have their own contribute to climate change and global warming, in terms of emissions, how greener is this solution that you suggest compared with traditional air conditioned systems and gases, of course?
I mean, it has the direct advantage that they are solids. So that means that they are not going to leak and basically go to the upper layers of the atmosphere and contribute to global warming. So that's a clear advantage. So not having a fluid or a gas refrigerant will help a lot in terms of global warming. The other issue that we are investigating is energy efficiency of all the systems, because in terms of emissions, in terms of CO2 emissions of cooling systems, roughly 1/3 of the emissions come from the refrigerant itself, from these gases, from these CFCs, from these HFCs or hydrocarbons. 2/3 come from the energy consumption, which means that if you don't really have a very efficient system, you are going to still be contributing quite a lot to global warming. Because just remember, fridges, air conditioning systems in many places are run 24/7 all year. This is a very significant contribution to global warming. So something that is potentially very interesting about these solid refrigerants is that they have the potential to be more efficient than vapor compression systems.
My last question for you. Do you feel that people today are fully aware of the risks of traditional air conditioned systems?
That's a good question. I mean, I think in general, I will say no. Because I think we are very used to having fridges at home. Nowadays, also more and more air conditioning systems. So it's like a very old technology that has been there for a very long time. We don't perceive it as dangerous. And in most cases, they are not dangerous, because if you look at the statistics, the number of accidents is, fortunately, very, very, very low. But we need to remember that all these systems operate using gases that are volatile, that are sometimes flammable, that they are toxic. And as such, one needs to be very careful with servicing the system, making sure that there are no leaks, and just keep it running in a good condition. This is something that needs to be serviced on a regular basis to make sure that there are no such accidents ever again.